Cliches retire, we set them free, shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.
Hello, this is Kim Miller-Hershon, Kim Miller-Hershon Coaching and Consulting. You are listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am so excited to welcome Heledd Wyn today. For me, she's coming from across the pond. For you, she may be on the same continent that you are. But Heledd, why don't you introduce yourself? And then I can't wait to talk to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me on. Really exciting to be here. So I'm a solicitor or an attorney, depending on, as you say, which side of the pond you're talking about. A lawyer, we'll go for that. And I very much work with individuals on estate planning. I do elder care, very much working with families on their affairs and those around them. So as it can be pretty varied. No 2 days are the same.
Right. On the one hand, and on the other hand, just public service announcement to everybody, no matter where you live, that it is unbelievably important to have an estate plan and to take care of your own affairs, that your heirs or the court doesn't get to say what happens with your assets.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. Your random question is, what's something you want to do next year that you've never done before?
Oh my goodness. What do I want to do? Next year's coming around quite quickly, isn't it? I think it would have to be something really exciting. It's going to be something to do with traveling. So it's going to probably a European city I've not been to before. And it's just a
Oh,
question of which one,
ooh, and that's a fun decision to make,
isn't
right?
it? Yes.
Yeah. Last week I tried a exercise class that I haven't done before, and I ended up with a sprained ankle. So,
Oh,
yeah. So that certainly didn't end up to be how I wanted it to be, but yeah. And would you believe I did it at a spin class? Isn't that
oh,
interesting?
how?
Yeah.
That is unusual.
Yeah. Oh, listen, we do unconventional here.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into some of the leadership things that I think are really relevant for our conversation and for what people really come here to listen to. So, what's one piece of conventional business wisdom that you followed early on only to realize that it was not right for you?
Yeah, my conventional wisdom that I started off with would be don't show your personality too early. Try and fit in, try and be corporate, try and toe the line. And then as soon as I decided that wasn't for me, life got an awful lot easier.
Yeah. So what is that? What was that experience like when you were trying to toe the line? Either what were you doing or what was the effect on you?
I think it's probably suppressing. Actually, I want to say something and I don't feel I can, or I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to do. So I'll just keep quiet. And then you realize somebody else has been brave enough and said it. You're going, I did think that. I just wasn't brave enough to say it.
Right.
So, well, actually, next time I'm going to say it, not wait for them.
Right. So did you go into a law firm in the beginning, like when you first started practice law? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And then was it the senior solicitors, lawyers that were what you looked up to, or did you have a preconceived idea of how you needed to show up?
A bit both, bit of both. I think you do have this sort of idea you're going to an office and you're going to be you're wearing a suit. You've got to be very prim and proper, and then your training partners are very much the same. And then you realise that you're like, well, actually, I don't want to be like a man when I'm in my 20s. I don't want to be like a man who's in his 50s. So
Ah, yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if this is true for you, but certainly because I'm older than you are, but in when I was younger in my career, I think that there were very few women in senior corporate positions. And if they were, talk about having to suppress who they are. Like, I think that how they showed up was not always a role model for how younger women wanted to show up.
I would absolutely agree because I think very much a case of the idea of actually we're trying to emulate men, but actually women do things differently, or women might
Right,
come at it, or any of us might come at it differently, or different generations come at it differently. It doesn't necessarily
right.
have to be gendered, but it's more that sort of newness to the bringing that to the table.
Yeah, I agree. I was reading a book recently, just a fiction book, which I highly recommend. I think it's called the Book Club for Troublesome Women. It's a great book. We'll put the link in the show notes because I at the moment I can't remember who the author was. But what is just mind-blowing is that the characters are all women in this book club, and it's in like the 60s and the early 70s. And it's hard to believe that they couldn't open checking accounts without their husband's permission. They didn't have their own credit, right? This maybe not in your lifetime, but certainly in my lifetime, that was my mom. And I just don't ever remember it really being an issue. But, and if you were single or divorced, then you had to get your father to do it, right? And so I think I'm just blown away by how
Amazing, isn't it? To think so it's not that long ago in the scheme of things.
exactly. Anyways, I don't know. I just went down a rabbit hole, but it felt relevant at the time. I don't know. All right. So you've got your own firm. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like in just in terms of how many people do you have working for you? Oh, and also too, we definitely want to know who you serve, like what your territory is.
Yeah, sure. It's not quite my firm, but I am a partner, and there's a few of us. And actually, talking about women, I think with the firm makeup is about 75% female, which is really nice. Really, really challenging that status quo of perceptions of male dominated industry. So I'm based in Bristol, which very close to London, and very much work with people in the city, but also all over the world because people travel and we can have phone calls and we can Zoom calls and Teams calls and we talk to people wherever they are. So it's it's the work tends to be jurisdictionally sort of in the UK, but certainly we can be really flexible with how and when we talk to people, which is really exciting because you get to meet all sorts of people all around the world.
And what is your team? So you're in a firm, you're a partner, and then what does your team look like?
Yeah, so there's about 25 of us in the team, and we've got all ages, all ranges. We've got people coming in straight from school. They're just learning the ropes from the beginning. We've got your old hands who've been knocking around a long time doing it and everything in between. And it's really nice bringing on these next generations, actually, of would be lawyers and seeing them grow and develop.
Okay. And so when these young lawyers look at you and they see you as a partner and they just see you as being somebody who's just got it all buttoned up and all together, what is one thing that you struggle with inside?
Oh, I think probably that sort of I've got all the answers. I don't. I don't think anybody's got all the answers. I
Uh-huh.
think what I'm probably better at is going, I know I don't know the answer and I'll go and find out. I think that's the experience piece, actually recognizing you can't know everything.
I actually think it takes a lot of self-confidence to have somebody expect you to have the answer and for you to be able to say, I don't know.
It is definitely something that you think actually being able to go, I don't know, is pretty powerful, but it can be also quite terrifying because you feel you ought to know everything.
And I recall, gosh, I'm trying to bring it up. It was a while ago. Somebody asked something about or used some an acronym for something that that and they say it so matter of factly, right? Everybody would know. It's jargon, right? But it's like everybody would know. And sometimes I find myself like nodding my head as if I know what they're talking about when I really have no idea. And I think it's such an interesting, I don't know, behavior really of my own because it's so low stakes. There's no reason not to say, I don't know what that is. But sometimes I find myself nodding before I've even had the opportunity to think through, wait a second, that's silly, right?
Yeah,
You know, and
definitely.
yeah, and I just wonder how much of it is ego, right, on my own part, and how much of it is just a trained behavior. But I would like to, that's what I'd like to do in the new year. I'd like to actually stop pretending that I know what somebody's talking about when I really have no idea.
It's quite liberating when you do go, do you know what? I just don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. What's interesting is I probably have, and I don't know if this resonates with you or not, I probably have less ego about what somebody asking me a question about what I do. It's very clear to me I do not want to fake that. If somebody asks me a question about my professional expertise and I don't know the answer, I would say maybe never is too strong of a word, but I can't think of an instance when I have ever tried to fake an
Yeah.
answer. It's more for me, I think, about more general information that I will sometimes get caught finding myself nodding my head when it absolutely doesn't matter, right? Oh, I know what it was. Somebody mentioned a book and an author, right? As if it was common knowledge, right? And I had no idea who they were talking about. And I found myself nodding my head, and I was just like, that was a little silly. So, yeah, there's that. All
I think
right.
we've all been there.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'd like to catch myself more often on that one. I don't know why, but it just feels like there's no reason to do it. All right. If you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief that you would throw out and what would you replace it with?
Okay, so I think you've got to be able to do everything yourself. It's that link to the it's a link to the not knowing all the answers. I think that I think we're all trained, particularly as lawyers, to go, you have to know everything and be able to do everything and answer all the questions and fix everything. And then the most powerful thing you can do is go, ah, delegate or ask an adult or ask somebody who's like really good at this and go, do you know what? It's okay not to be good at everything. And I think I wish I'd learned that a lot earlier, that I don't have to do everything myself.
Yeah. Ooh, that is very powerful. I think letting go is one of, I think, the hardest things. It was interesting. I had actually a group coaching session yesterday with an online group that I run. And and these are very accomplished, very successful women executives. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people think that is just about people who are just starting out or just like in the middle of their career. But I will say that is something that can get you at any level that you're at. And reevaluating what you do. You know what's interesting for me is that earlier on, when people would have their assistants send me like requests for meetings, or answer my request for a meeting with somebody, I used to really have a judgment about that. Like, oh, I'm not important enough. And what's really interesting is that I have an assistant and I have her do all of my correspondence, all of it,
Excellent.
because she's so good at it and I'm so bad at it. And that if she's on top of it, if that's her only job, she doesn't let things fall through the cracks. She gets it done and she's great at following up on things. So it makes so much more sense. And a piece of tip for the listeners out there. I think one thing that because I know that I sometimes have that response to an email from somebody's assistant, I have actually trained her because for her, it's just a task, right? Like I said, oh, reach out to so and please set up a meeting. So she is likely on her own to just say, here are times for a meeting. Like, when are you available? And I have actually asked her to be like, Kim really wants to meet with you. When are you available? Because that's more kind of what I would say. So, infusing a little bit of my personality into how she corresponds with people. I don't know if it makes anybody else feel better, but it makes me feel more in integrity.
I can see that. And I think you said that like she's really good at stuff. Great. And it's that division of labor and that passing the work on to the right person, hugely important.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you grow your business?
I think it's LinkedIn. And I think that's something I've been involved with for some time now and from early doors, if you will. And going from just being on LinkedIn to having a sort of professional profile to actually using it as a tool to engage with people, to meet people, to start conversations, to start dialogue. It's been phenomenal. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, why would you do that? Why would you bother with LinkedIn? And I'm like, because it is a phenomenal opportunity to just open doors that wouldn't be open otherwise.
And we wouldn't be talking if it wasn't for LinkedIn,
We wouldn't be,
right?
no, which is amazing, isn't
And sometimes I pinch myself, and maybe this just makes me sound old, and maybe digital natives take this for granted. But I think it is such an amazing opportunity to connect with people who you would never know otherwise. And I'm so continually and delightfully surprised at we got on pre-interview call and we just started chatting like we knew each other.
it? Yeah,
And it is pretty amazing. And it's interesting that you've been engaging in LinkedIn even like for your business development,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is just phenomenal. You should probably teach a course on that. I think a lot of people would like to know how to do that better. One thing I will say, it takes some time and it takes some time to build, right, the engagement.
It does. It isn't an overnight success thing, but it really is a phenomenal tool to get to know people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's yeah, I think that's an interesting tip. I really do think so. All right. Many leaders secretly battle with imposter syndrome or self-doubt. So I think I want it to be really a two-part question for you, which is where's it going to show up for you? And when it does, what are some things that you do and some tips you can give the listeners around how to battle it?
I think because the phrase imposter syndrome, I think is an interesting one because I think it predisposes people to go, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think for me, it's more about I've suddenly found myself outside a comfort zone that I am doing something that is new to me, or it's not something I've had to come up, it's not something I've had to deal with before, and therefore it's uncomfortable because, and that's what I think does this makes things hard. Where you go, I'm outside my comfort zone. Where do I start? Where do I go with this? Should it even be me? And then if you can have that confidence in yourself to go, actually, why not me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I learn this opportunity? Why can't I take this opportunity? It might take me more time than it would take somebody else, but actually, I've moved myself much further down the line out of my comfort zone into an area that means that I can do it again next time and do it quicker and do it better,
Hmm.
learn from it. I think we all have it. I think any of us who are professionals wouldn't be still working if we didn't have that level of concern and curiosity.
So, can you think of any particular situations without naming anybody, but is there any person or type of client or any situation that you can think of that more specifically where it comes up for you?
I think because the more senior you get, the more senior sort of clients you get. And you then, as a junior lawyer, you never let loose on the managing director's clients. When you are the grown up in the room, you are the one then getting that client base, and and a lot goes with that territory.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that's interesting, right? Like you put a lot of pressure on yourself. There's a lot of expectation that you're going to take care of somebody else's clients in a particular way. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and you want to give people fantastic service, and you want to give them the best advice, and it comes back to that imposter syndrome. It comes back to that, am I the best person in the room? All that goes hand in hand. And you do get that piece of going, okay, I've got to be grown up now. Take this and run with it, and make sure this client, who is probably themselves a very high flyer, very impatient, and very much wants things done in a certain
Hmm.
way and wants it done now, that they then get that service because they're paying for it ultimately.
And that is a lot of expectation and pressure to put on yourself. And then I think the other thing that comes with that sometimes is that sometimes we just make mistakes, right?
We, yeah,
And I think the expectation that comes with that is somehow that you can't ever make a mistake. And I think sometimes the more important piece of it is how do you handle the mistake,
and
right?
I think everybody makes mistakes, and I think if you don't make mistakes, that's more worrying.
Ooh, say more about that. I agree.
Because if you're not making mistakes, you're either not pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, or covering it up, or you're then and you're not learning from it. You're not going, actually, how would I do that better? You're not analyzing your own work
Right.
type, your work style, your work strengths. You're staying in the lane. And my dad always said there's a big difference between doing a job for 20 years that grows, or doing the same job 1 year at a time over a period of 20 years.
Oh my gosh, that's wise. I would agree with that. Yeah. I think that this expectation on ourselves that we can't ever make mistake. I agree with you 100% that if you're not making mistakes, then you are not pushing yourself. You are not growing. I guess imposter syndrome is you can do it, but you doubt yourself. But on the other hand, sometimes some of these clients can have unreasonable expectations.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
I think in my coaching, what I'm often talking to people about is clear communication up front, that you're setting the stage to be able to have potentially difficult conversations moving down the line because you have been really clear about what to expect or at least how to communicate. And when we don't set those expectations and things go wrong, sometimes it can get very dicey and
It can.
uncomfortable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whew, all right. Is there anything else that you think in terms of just how to grow yourself that we haven't talked about that you think would be a good part of this conversation?
I think what I'm interested in is the coaching thing. That, as I say, I'm a lawyer, I'm a professional, and I therefore work in a very sort of distinct, discrete way. But how should I be recognizing where I need to be pushing those boundaries and asking for that assistance in an area that is not familiar to me?
Wow, that's such a good question. I think, what I guess my answer is that you get a coach, right? Because I think really what you're saying is you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely not.
Right. And having somebody from the outside ask the questions is sometimes incredibly enlightening. We can put it back to what you do, and people don't know what the potential issues are in their estate or what they can do, what they can't do. That's why they come to you. You go to a coach, you may have an idea of where you want to grow or push some boundaries, but a coach also has the view of here's some other things that you need to think about. And in this Ambition Unleashed program that I do, my online program, I think that's a lot of what we're doing. These are already super successful women, and it's me getting a peek inside their businesses and saying, listen, if you want to 10x your business, you have to actually give yourself a different job than you currently
Okay.
have. So there's the what does that look like? And there's practically, okay, if I'm not doing this, who's doing it? And how do I hold them accountable? And do I have the right team to support the growth? I think the other part of it is maybe a more important piece of it, which is your mindset around, first of all, like really embracing, like, what does 10x look like? Right? Like, what actually really is possible for you? And it should give you chill bumps when you think about growing your business. And then the second thing is, what do you believe about yourself, about success, like your story? Because listen, everybody's story is meant, like, you are where you are and you have contextualized that with your story, right? And so if you want growth or something different, a different outcome, then you really have to look at your story, right? And where do you sabotage yourself, and how do you reconcile those pieces? And I would say that when I'm going to make a bold statement here, but personally, I would say there's three parts. I would tell you any good coach can help you figure out what a good plan, like what next steps look like, what a good plan is. Honestly, I think every good coach does that and can do it very well. I think they're also like some coaches, I just think that the part about getting your mind and your beliefs aligned with the change that you want is critical. Here's, though, I think what I'm going to make a bold statement here that I think almost no coaches do, which is this is not a one size fits all conversation. I think that the only way you actually create sustainable growth for you is for a coach to be able to see you, right? Like you,
Okay. Okay.
not an attorney who wants to grow their business, but who are you? How do you work? What do you believe? How are you going to be able to create and sustain growth given how you prefer to behave, how you prefer to do things, right? So it's got to be very customized. That's my that is my honest sort of opinion about how you actually create this kind of new place that you go into.
Super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. But it's got to be about you. It can't be about the coach's methodology.
That's fascinating. And I think that's so helpful to get the most out of it.
That's right. Exactly. Because some people are going to need spreadsheets and checklists, and some people are just going to need feelings and courage, right? And everything in between. But everybody doesn't need the same thing. But just to wrap this up, I would say that this idea around unconventional wisdom, about conventional wisdom, I think really came about because there are so many really well qualified and wonderful people out there, people that we think of gurus who have these wonderful ideas about success and about how to move forward, personal development, professional development. And they have used these techniques and they have gotten very far and had a lot of success using them. I think my objection to this, everybody has to be on the same path, is that so the guru says, oh my God, you've got to do this in order to be the most successful lawyer, the most
Yeah.
successful attorney. And then they give you the steps to do that. So let's just say for our purposes, there's 5 steps, right? What happens if you can't do step 3? Do you just not to get to have the success?
Okay. Yeah.
Or I think more subtly, what happens is because now, especially with social media, there's so much social proof that testimonials. I use this methodology and I grew my business X%, and I use this
Yeah.
technology and I am so much happier, or whatever it is, right? Whatever outcome they're giving. So, this very subtle message is, if you can't follow that methodology, you can't do step 3. You can't get to the end. You can't get the success. That's actually your failure. It's not
Okay.
the methodology's failure, because look at, here's the proof that it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty icky, right?
That's something else.
And my thing is that maybe step 3 isn't the right thing for you, right? Like, I think the idea is that the process is just the process, and you've got to find the right process for you. And that's why working with somebody can be super helpful. There's lots of ways to get to the outcome, right? And so you need somebody who is flexible enough to help you find what's going to get you there, versus saying, this is the way everybody needs to get there, and my job is just to hold you accountable to the steps. Yeah, I'm off my pedestal now. So,
It's a good pencil to be on, though.
yeah. Yeah, I do feel really strongly about it. I think part of interviewing you and interviewing all of these wonderful people is really to give the listener an idea about how can you also be successful given who you are, right?
Yeah.
So I think it all plays nicely together.
It absolutely doesn't. I can't do any of this in isolation.
Exactly. And you're lucky to be in a great firm when you have found your way to engage and to find the people who need you. And I think that's the other thing. The more you can show up as yourself, the more you can attract people who really are going to enjoy working with you.
And I hope that's the case, because I think there are so many lawyers out there. I can only do so much, but I want to work with people who want to work with me.
Exactly. And that's what's great about showing up on LinkedIn, because the more you put out content that really shows who you are, then it really gives people an idea of what it would be like to work with you.
Yeah.
And hopefully, this podcast will also help with that too, because you're
Fantastic. Thank you.
delightful.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
All right. You have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom with me. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon, with Heledd Wyn, who is a lawyer in Bristol in the UK. And I know that you have gotten some gems from her today. I know I have. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. So, you know what you need to do. Go out there, share, download, all the things that you know you need to do. And we will see you next time on Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. Go out there and be a better human.
Cliches retire, we set them free. Shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.